guys, welcome to the Southern Wizard, bringing you another standard video this week. Today we're going to be running Sultai Reanimator. So this deck has actually been a lot of fun to play. It definitely does have a few weaknesses as far as the current meta, but I think what's interesting about this is that with standard rotating here pretty soon, it's been really just fun to play. Definitely something that I think has a few weaknesses, but just a lot of fun to play. So speaking of that rotation, the biggest things that we'll lose, Traverse obviously will be gone, Grim Flare will be gone from standard as well, Grasp of Darkness, we will also lose the Oath of Jace, Ishkana, and Ever After. I guess that's it from the creature perspective. In the sideboard, we would lose... no, actually we would be fine in the sideboard, right? No, Dispel would be gone. Unless it gets reprinted in Ixalan. And then of course we have some lands, Hissing Quagmire, and Lumbering Falls, and Sunken Hollow would be rotated. So plenty of things from this deck will be gone. So this will obviously be tough to use after rotation. But this deck's great. It actually runs 22 lands, which for the most part I've felt is fine. I've seen a few lists that run 23, 24, but I've actually only run into land issues just a couple times in playtesting this, so I think 22 is actually fine. You do have Traverse that you can go find lands if you need to. Champion of Wits, Oath of Jace, and Strategic Planning all allow us to kind of get some land drops if we need them. So I felt like that was fine. We do have some early removal, Fatal Push, Grasp, Doomfall if we need it. That's also Hand Disruption if we need it. I have found that the target opponent exiling a creature has been pretty effective, especially with Teamer Energy being big right now with Bristling Hydra. That's a great card to just target your opponent and basically make them sack it. We do have, like I said, Fatal Push and Grasp to get rid of other small things around it. Yahini's Expertise also can do that as well. So that's something just to be aware of as far as clearing your opponent's board, getting the Doomfall to exile something that's actually important, not just a small dork or something like that. Grim Flare has been an outstanding 2-drop in this deck. We do kind of run a small Delirium thing between Ishkana, Grim Flare, and Traverse. It's not a huge... I wouldn't call it a thing that the deck is really trying to do, but it does do very easily. Strategic Planning, Champion of Wits, and Oath of Jace are all discard outlets, which obviously we want to be discarding these larger creatures so that we can do our reanimate thing, but getting to Delirium is actually pretty consistent and not hard at all. So we do play one Yahini's in the main board just to get rid of a board. It's a small board wipe if we need it. But our big Reanimator spells are Liliana, in which we would play the Liliana -3, get a creature back from our graveyard, or Ever After, where we can get 2 creatures back from our graveyard. So our big creatures are pretty straightforward. Again, with Delirium, Ishkana is pretty great. You get the 3 spider tokens and a big 3/5 body. Scare of God is great because it's another Reanimator type thing where if it's on play, you can get some things from the graveyard and you can do either your opponent's or your graveyard depending on what they're playing. Noxious Gearhulk is pretty straightforward. This is another thing that when you discard it, it's an artifact and a creature, so that helps towards our Delirium idea. But this also, obviously, when it comes into play, you can destroy one of your opponents or one of your creatures to gain some life if you need to in a pinch. Demon of Dark Scheme is pretty good. Again, the -2/-2 helps. It doesn't always do exactly what you need it to, but it's definitely a helpful factor. The energy thing really doesn't do anything for us in this deck. We're not using energy other than for this guy. So it helps itself, but that's really the only card that it goes into. But again, he can reanimate things as well with his ability down there. And then of course, Razaketh being a big 8/8 body, flying trample, and his pay 2 life, sacrifice another creature to search your library for any card and put that in your hand. That's a pretty cool thing. So It's been a lot of fun to play. I've really enjoyed it. Let's check out the sideboard real quick. Manglehorn in here for artifact hate. We also do play 2 Dispossess to do the same thing. The God Sparrow's Gift is a real card, and it's really good. So if we can get rid of those, that's pretty solid too. I've also seen this in the meta, some people going back to Metalwork Colossus. If you can dispossess your opponent and get rid of Metalwork Colossus, that essentially shuts that deck down. So that's a pretty sweet thing. We do run 1 Lost Legacy just in case if we're playing Team or Energy and we want to make sure we get rid of the Bristle and Hydras. That's a big thing. We do run 2 Yahini's Expertise on the side just in case they're playing Ramen Up Red or something like that where we want to get rid of smaller creatures. If we are dealing with Planeswalkers, Never to Return is a good option. Another Fatal Push on the board as well. As far as counterspell stuff goes, we don't run any in the main, but if we decide that we need that in a second or third match, we do run 2 Dispel, 2 Negate, and 2 Nimble Obstructionists. This is pretty cool because to me this is Dispel with card draw. So basically what you get is when you cycle this card, you're able to counter-target activated or triggered ability that you don't control. So you're basically, for 1 blue and 2 colorless, dispelling some kind of activated ability, whether it be a Planeswalker ultimating or something of the like. You get to do that, and then you also get to draw the card from the cycling. So that's been pretty cool. So we run 2 of those, 2 negates, 2 dispels, and that's been pretty good for us. So let's take this for a spin and see what we got. Alright guys, welcome to match number 1 with Sultai Reanimator. We did win the die roll, so we will play first, see what we got in our opening hand here. This hand is okay. This hand would be great if it had a Grimflare in it, but I think even still it's okay. This deck definitely does not have explosive starts usually. More common than not, turn 3 is kind of when we start going. So with that in mind, this is definitely going to achieve that. So we've got 2 tap lands that we definitely want to get on board. But the good news is all 3 of our colors are represented. We've got a traverse if we need to go get some kind of basic. So I'll keep this, and I'll probably lead off with the Lumbering Falls. Yeah, so we'll start off with that, and we'll pass the turn, see what our opponent's playing. Sometimes on turn 1 you can tell what your opponent's doing, and sometimes you can't. So let's see what we got. Canopy this though. Doesn't give us a ton of information straight off the board. So cool. So that obviously does change things. So we'll get out the swamp here. We'll play Grimflare. He's just too good to leave in your hand. Alright. So we'll resolve this and pass the turn. Alright, Fortified Village tapped. Alright. So here, we do want to get this Oath of Jace out, but we want to attack first because we're going to get a trigger here. So we'll play the Botanical Sanctum, move to attacks, and then we will swing with the Grimflare. It's only for 2, which obviously we wish it was more, but we'll get in that 2 damage, good early damage, and we do get a trigger off the Grimflare, so let's see what we get from that. Alright, so we'll pitch a champion, and we'll pitch a land. It gives us 2 things towards Delirium, but we want to keep that champion on top. Since we're going to Oath of Jace now. This will put the Oath of Jace into play, which we, you know, if we could get into the graveyard, that'd be great. But we're fine doing this. Okay, so we're discarding 2 cards here. So now this is one of those things where you can get to Delirium pretty quick. So what we can do is we can discard the Traverse or the Doomfall, which would be a sorcery, and then if we do Noxious, that would be an artifact and a creature. So that would give us artifact, creature, land, and sorcery. So we would be at Delirium, which is what I want to do. I still don't know what my opponent's doing here. So I definitely want to keep Doomfall as far as running some kind of hand disruption next turn. So I'm going to choose Traverse and Noxious. So we are at Delirium. Obviously, Grimflare is a 4/4 now. We'll pass the turn. So next turn, we want to get the champion out so that we can discard Razaketh and Demon. It's pretty rare that we just cold cast those, but it does occur sometimes. So it's not the end of the world if we keep them in our hand for a little while. So Oath will trigger, but nothing happens because we didn't play Planeswalker. Grasp of Darkness is pretty great here. So I'm actually going to hold off on my land drop, because if we play Champion of Wits and we end up getting a basic land, then we want to be able to play that instead of the tapped land. So let's just go to attacks, see what kind of information we can gather. Our opponent did discard Aronis. Looks like they're getting a little bit short on lands. Grimflare's pretty good. I think we only discard the island here. We put the other two on top. Because we're going to play Champion of Wits. Draw 2, discard 2, likely discarding Razaketh and Demon of Dark Schemes. Alright, discard those. We will play Hissing Quagmire tapped. And pass the turn. Alright, we found a third land. I'm kind of surprised they would discard Ronus, being that it costs 3 and that's something to get on the board when you find a land. I get that it can't block or attack unless something on the board is its power. Is it 3 or 4? Yeah, power 4 or greater. But it's still something on the board. Alright, so Devoted Cropmates. From your graveyard to the battlefield. Interesting. Alright. So our opponent gets something on the board. Unfortunately for them, we do have some removal in our hand. So let's see what we draw, and we'll kind of go from there. Ooh, Liliana. Okay, cool. So yeah, so we'll just go ahead and grasp this. It clears the way for our attackers. And again, Grimflare continues to do his thing. So we'll move to attacks here. Get in for 6. And it looks like our opponent's just ready to scoop. So let's go to game 2. Alright, sideboard. So we don't really have a large idea of what our opponent's doing. We know that they have Ronus, and they've got some exerted creatures. So we know that that's going on. So with that being said, Fatal Push seems pretty good. They've got some smaller creatures. Henny's expertise hasn't shown that it'll be great, so we could probably shade that. And really, we'll probably just keep it like this. Alright. So with this, I think this is still a keep. So we'll lead out with Botanical Sanctum, and then we'll traverse for a swamp. That way we can get Grimflare active. So we will keep this. Strategic planning gets pretty good later. Alright, cool. So we'll play that. Traverse to lead off, just as we said. Let's go get a swamp. And pass the turn. Sets us up for a Grimflare next turn. Sure. Selfless is good. Oh, and drew another one. Grimflare. Nice. Alright, let's get Pass turn. They can attack here. Sure. Alright. So now, the name of the game, for the Sunken Hollow to come in untapped, we want basics out there, so we'll play that. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to lead off with a Fatal Push, get that Selfless Spirit out of there. Yep. And we're not worried, even if they were able to like flash in a creature or something like that, we're not really worried about it since we have another one in hand. I don't know of any flashable creature with 2 white mana, but... Alright, so we have Sorcery, Instant, and Graveyard right now. We can get land and another sorcery. It doesn't help us tremendously, but that's okay. So I think what we'll do is we'll just drop both of these lands, and we'll leave Ever After on top. Actually, we'll just throw it in the graveyard because we're about to strategically plan, and we're hoping to... Yeah, so we're going to hit Delirium off of this with Noxious going in, so we'll actually take... Yeah, I think we'll just take Grimflare. And pass the turn. We are at Delirium. Yeah, our opponent just didn't have answers. So, not super exciting, but we'll go to match 2 and hopefully get a little bit more interactive with the game.